they felt certain that they would get such a meeting. It just wasn't on the schedule. Well, it turns out that this is the way things happened in China in those days. When I first went there in 1979, it was the same thing. At that time, Mao had died and Deng Xiaoping was the leader. And a lot of American officials were coming out to China to see this new Chinese leader. And one of my jobs was to go out to the airport and meet them and go over their schedule. And on the schedule, they wouldn't see Deng Xiaoping's name. And you know, these are senators, these are members of the cabinet, they're secretaries, they're the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was one of the people who handled the U.S. Supreme Court. And they would say, well, what's going on here, Mr. Holbrook? How come you can't schedule Deng Xiaoping for us? And I'd say, this is the way the Chinese are. And I'd say, the chances are good. You'll get to see him, but I can't guarantee it. Just the way the Chinese government operated. And I think it comes from the secrecy with which the Chinese Communist Party had operated all of its existence and still operates today. They're not transparent, they're not democratic. They do things in secret and then tell people about them when they want to. And that extended also to scheduling meetings with foreigners, even the President of the United States. So as you read, that as it turned out, when Nixon got to Beijing the very first day, suddenly there's a meeting, you know, unscheduled in advance. They had a few minutes notice. Absolutely typical of the way the Chinese leadership worked then. They're better today. They're more open today than they used to be, but you still have that one-party system that likes to be in control of everything. Let's see, what about this quote about this is the week that changed the world? Peter?
Well, I do think that it definitely had a very large impact on history just because the U.S. and China were the two world powers aside from the USSR. So it really is imperative, you know, for last generation, this generation, all of the future generations between the U.S. and China, that we do have a positive relationship, because if we don't, war could break out, trade gets slow, and it could cripple the world economy.
Good response. Okay. Reed, what do you think about that?
I was just saying that this week established diplomatic relations between what are now the two sole world powers, and before then there wasn't really any economic cooperation between the U.S. and China, but today you see made in China on at least 2/3 of manufacturing goods.
Probably your shoes also. I don't know.
No, these are from Vietnam.
Vietnam, okay. That's because manufacturing is, to some extent, moved on from China to a lower cost place, Vietnam. Okay. Let's see, was anyone else this time? Andrew?
I agree that it was
You could say it was kind of the first step in steps that led China to emphasize economic development rather than world revolution. So I guess do we all agree that it was not only a change, something that changed the world, but it was a favorable change? Does anybody think it was unfavorable? Yes.
I guess you could say that it led to a lot of the domestic manufacturing in the U.S. moving overseas to China.
Okay.
But that probably, like, these are, my shoes are from Vietnam, but
yeah.
So it probably would have just, the industry probably would have just moved to another low-cost location like Mexico, for example.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's a point some people are still saying today. And if you read President Obama's two books, he makes that point in one of them, that he doesn't like the idea of things that are manufacturing in the United States suddenly moving overseas and being manufactured there. He has a certain, what we might call, protectionist strain in him. And even though he understands the benefits of trade, he still doesn't like the idea of Americans losing jobs. So, you know, that's you could say an unfavorable element that this visit led to was one of the continuing problems in the U.S.-China relationship is we buy a lot more from China than they buy from the United States. And as you suggest, things that we used to do in the United States got sent somewhere else to do. Sometimes China, sometimes Vietnam, sometimes Mexico. The response would be, well, that's the way trade works. Everyone benefits when people who can manufacture things less expensively at the same quality are allowed to do so. And consumers benefit from lower prices, but still, you know, that's an argument still made today, and made by, especially by people who may have lost their jobs, people in China. You might say, well, they're in the wrong job. They should move on to a job where Americans can do better, such as service industries, such as Microsoft, such as high-tech enterprises, rather than manufacturing.
What does China buy from the United States?
Well, let's see, when Chinese leaders come to the United States and they land in Washington, what kind of aircraft are they flying? They're flying a Boeing 747 usually,
Exactly.
or they may be flying one of the Airbuses, normally 747.
That's why Boeing in Seattle, employs so many workers thanks to China.
Oh yeah, China is probably the number 2 customer of Boeing worldwide. It's a major purchaser of Boeing aircraft. You don't want to look too carefully. You look at that plane and you look at the cargo doors. You think, where are they manufactured? Well, it turns out they're manufactured in Shenyang, in China, where I used to live. And you look at the tail assembly, and where is that manufactured? It was manufactured in Chengdu, near Chongqing, where the Oil is from, in China.
They also China's love Apple products.
Well, yes, and some of
They're
them are
not even getting enough.
and some of them are manufactured in China too. I mean, the world economy today is on the one hand, yes, those are American companies and American benefits, but lots of products are manufactured in different places around the world and then assembled. Certainly the aircraft is a good example, assembled in Seattle, Washington.
And Coca-Cola is from the United States. And it's,
Yeah.
so you cannot say it only, benefits China, but
Yeah.
I think it also benefits
Well,
the
it's
United
certainly
States.
benefiting American stockholders, although Coca-Cola and Pepsi and places like that, companies like that have overseas manufacturing facilities. And all over China, what do you see? You see something that Kentuckians should be proud of, Kentucky Fried Chicken, just everywhere.